Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 579. My name is Kyle.
And my name is James.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, welcome.
What's up, Kyle? How's it going?
Not much. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. I think the problem with these intros is we've already done all this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's like drop the curtain for a moment. It's not like we just started talking the moment we recorded.
We've been talking for like half an hour before this about just life in general. So. Okay, well, then, I did save a story that for the podcast that I did not tell you yet.
Oh,
so I do
okay.
have something new to bring to this conversation.
Great. Yeah. Let's hear it.
It's not movie related whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
But it is I guess, I don't know, you can call it a coronavirus reminder experience that I had.
Uh-oh. All right.
Okay. So like most Americans, I've kind of put coronavirus on the back burner. I'm aware that it's out there.
Sure.
I mask in places like the doctor's office that say, please mask.
Okay.
My wife had it like a month ago.
Sure.
My son and I, neither of us got it. That was her second time getting it. Like it was an inconvenience to our home. I'm like, oh man, she's got it. And I don't need a mask at work and tests.
Right. But nobody was panicked or like.
No one was panicked. She didn't even get that sick. She had like one day where she felt kind of off and then.
Right.
So
I hear you.
Yeah, coronavirus is a thing that I don't think a lot about. This weekend, my wife, my son, and I, we went to a zine fest at the local public library. And by zine, I mean like small independent magazines, alternative artists, that kind of thing, right? It was really cool. My son's really into comics and art, and it was he was just eating it all up, just watching like all these cool pictures. He came home with a picture of like a sheriff werewolf crushing a can of baked beans that like some guy drew. He thought it was the coolest thing. So,
all right,
yeah. But at this fest, this whatever. All these tables, I want to say 80% of the people there were masked. Both the attendees and the presenters, the people running the booths. And like, I'm used to seeing masks where I live. There's still people, I'll be out at the grocery store. I'll still see one or two people masking. Like, it's not abnormal to see people wearing masks in public. They're extreme minority, but I still see it around. But I just had not been in a situation in years, since probably 2022. So not years, a year, but end of 2021, where the majority of people in the space were masked, especially at this point in the pandemic, or wherever we are now, and even over endemic or not. I guess we're still technically a pandemic.
I have no clue.
Exactly. I don't no clue either. Like it was to the point where people had signs on their booths like, do not approach without a mask on. Megan and I thought maybe we missed a sign. Like, is this supposed to be a masked event? Did we miss something at the entrance? Didn't see anything. So it was just very surreal to kind of transport myself back to 2021 in a sense and be in a room full of masked people. And then I was the person who wasn't masked. And I was like, oh man, if this was 2 years ago, I'd be like, man, what an a-hole not wearing a mask around these people. So
yeah, I wonder if it's just like they know they're going to be in public talking to a bunch of people. They're going to be doing it all day. You know what I mean? Whereas you can kind of like choose who you walk up to. Whereas if you're sitting at a desk, you're people walk up to you. You can't really. Yeah.
And you're in a closed space all day.
Yeah.
But I guess I just wonder like why that crowd? Because obviously there's other crowds that are running booths and in enclosed spaces and aren't wearing masks, like trade shows and everything.
Sure.
So I was curious to know like why that crowd was so still pro-mask within their community.
I don't know. I mean, I associate those types of magazines with liberals.
Yeah, that's fair.
So maybe that's part of it. Like there's not too many underground local, art magazines run by Republican people, I would say. And so maybe that's part of it. But I mean, I know a good share of people who I would say lean left, and none of them have masked for the last 6 months plus for the most part. So I don't know. That is odd. you want to hear? I was recently in a room with a bunch of people too yesterday. Okay. I was at a convention run by Zach's brother that's for pilots, right?
Oh, yeah.
He runs an organization for pilots. And so they have a yearly convention. I went just to say hi to people and check it out because I'd never been to his convention that he runs. So I went there and I was walking around. Everybody's super nice. But I was looking around and I was like, I'm pretty sure I might have the biggest beard here.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
And then I was like looking around to see if that was true. And then I realized I was one of the few people that had a beard, period. Okay.
Okay.
And then I was like, wow, pilots don't have beards. Because
interesting.
Literally me, Zach's brother, John,
Matt.
Matt did not have a beard.
Oh,
so John Zach, me, and maybe 10 other people out of like maybe 200 to 300, mostly men,
right,
had beards. And that's not normal. You know what I mean? You go to the mall, you walk around, more than 50% of the dudes have beards.
I would say
even if it's like just a little
male
thin
fashion thing right now. Yeah.
Right. Even if it's just like a little thin thing. I know you don't have a beard. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people having beards. I just never really thought about the fact that like pilots wouldn't have beards. And I don't even know if that's true, but the vast, vast majority of dudes there, when I go to church, like 80% of the people at my church have a beard, of the guys, obviously.
You're right.
And so that's like the place that I'm in the most that like a mass group of people might be in. And so I don't know. It was suggested that maybe it's because most of them originally were in the military.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then they become pilots type of thing. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Military is very anti-beard for the most part. Yeah.
Although I've seen lots of beards from Navy SEALs and movies and stuff like that. A lot of them have beards. So I don't know.
So I read an interesting article about this. It's so that like the operator beard is what you can call it.
Sure.
Right. Kind of like the big bushy beard. And it's usually a special forces guy or whatever.
Right.
And yeah. And that is sort of, that started as my understanding, someone could, maybe in the military has a better idea, but from what I read, that kind of started as both a symbol of rebellion because these guys could kind of get away with it, and also a signifier of like, oh, I'm special forces, I'm different than the rest of military, and I can show that because look at this beard, and who's gonna tell me I can't have this beard?
Sure.
So that's sort of where the operator beard, at least from what I read, came from.
Where is that like a real thing, or is that just like a movie trope thing?
I think it's both. I think you can Google. I want to say that the real thing came first and then became a movie trope.
Interesting.
I don't know. Google operator beard and then see.
Yeah.
This is a thrilling podcast as James Googles things and reads Google back to us.
Sure. So anyway, the person who ran the event, Zach's brother, his name is Matt. Matt has been on the podcast before, but I also got to meet Andrew, who's like his business partner, who has also been on the podcast before. So that was the first time I ever got to meet Andrew. And so that was fun as well. Cool. To meet a former guest in person. Hadn't even seen Andrew because the last time they were on was like pre-Zoom.
Oh, so he was just, Zoom was around, just no one was using it back then.
Right. We did it over the phone. I don't even know how we did it, but we did it remotely without using Zoom. So
when I used to be on the podcast remotely pre-Zoom, we would all be on a phone call together.
I think it was Skype without video.
It was Skype. And then I was also recording myself locally. I'm not sure if all your guests did that back then.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think you were just special because we knew you could handle it.
I could handle recording myself locally.
Yeah. All right, Kyle.
James.
What are we doing here? It's time to talk movies.
We haven't mentioned that Zach's not here. Wouldn't it be funny if all of a sudden Zach chimed in like, hey guys, thanks for including me.
It would be funny if he didn't say a word for like,
yeah, especially as we're talking about
minutes.
Like the conference that he was running involving his brother.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the point of all that? Oh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Zach's not here. Don't know why he's not here. I'm assuming it's related to the conference and people being in town, family members being in town.
Yeah, I think he was just so busy this weekend that he didn't have time for a movie.
For sure.
Didn't have time for us, James. We're second fiddle to that family right now.
That's all right.
Yeah,
so be it. Yeah, so we're going to talk a movie this week that you and I both saw. It's a movie about boxing. And I know nothing about boxing other than what I've seen in movies. And I don't know. Do you know a lot about boxing? I know you don't know a lot about mixed martial arts, but boxing specific?
Boxing specific, no, but combat sports, a little bit more knowledge. So, yeah.
Sure. All I know about combat sports, like I went through a 3-4 year period where I watched like every UFC like pay-per-view event.
Okay.
And so I have that knowledge, but I don't think it's the same as boxing. Like,
no,
maybe the fact that there's rounds.
there are rounds and there are points in UFC. Right. I feel like boxing has a lot more rules about what you can and can't do, whereas UFC has rules. I mean, it used to be sold as no holds barred and no rules, but that's not true. There's always been rules in UFC.
Yeah, and in boxing, there's always been kind of like, it's like elevated. You know what I mean? Like UFC, mixed martial arts, was seen kind of like as the barbaric version, and boxing was like finesse and strategy type of thing.
I think only because I'm pretty sure boxing was viewed as barbaric, and then UFC came out, and people are like, "Oh, it could get worse." Okay, no, boxing is the classy combat sport, is classy pugilism. Where UFC, and if you watch those original UFCs, like I have on DVD UFC 1 through 4.
Yeah, they're out there.
Oh, so there's no rounds. It's right. First to tap or to get knocked out. So like some fights would go 15 minutes without any stoppage. People were losing teeth those first fights because they weren't wearing mouth guards. It literally was, let's put a sumo wrestler versus like a kung fu fighter in an octagon, and let's see what happens.
Right.
And then, slowly over the years, UFC fighters became much more diverse in their skills, and they became much more honed in on like kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and that style. But yeah, those original ones, it really was like, what if a shoot fighter fought a, French savate fighter? Let's see what happens.
Sure. Well, and they also figured out that like, if they want a product that reaches more people, it has to have some structure, and you have to watch it knowing that like you're not going to watch somebody die. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
There's like a small section of people that are like totally into the idea that somebody could, but the mass majority are like, we'd like to see a sporting event, but not at the risk of our mental health, because we literally watch somebody get murdered on screen.
Right. And you want sponsors. So like, and sponsors want rounds. They want breaks. Right. They don't want 15 minutes of like a tiny jiu-jitsu guy and a big wrestler guy just rolling around the floor.
Right. For sure. Anyway, I don't know how we got on that tangent. I don't remember.
Boxing, because we're talking a boxing movie today.
Right. So yeah, we're going to talk a boxing movie. Maybe a couple here and there mixed in, I imagine. And then we're going to talk about the other movies that the director of the boxing movie we're going to talk about has starred in.
Correct. Are we going
to
reveal who the director?
Like they've seen the thumbnail, they've seen the title. I don't know why I'm dancing around this, but
he's also the star of the movie.
Sure, I wasn't going to spoil that, but
okay. Well, I think if you've seen the first two, this is also, in case you don't know yet, the third installment of a boxing movie where the star is now the director. Right. Can you guess it yet?
Of a boxing movie in which there's only one other series that's had 3, like boxing series that's had 3 movies, right?
Yes, and this is related to that box.
Right. This is the reboot of that.
This is the third movie based on a 6-movie series. It's actually the 9th movie within the universe of.
Right. So if you really enjoy pointless spoiler-free chat, expect more of what you just got in the last 2 minutes.
All right, so I give this 3 stars. What do you say?
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk this ambiguous movie that nobody knows what we're talking about. But first, we got to do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go check it out there at Cinereelists, youtube.com/Cinereelists. Subscribe and listen while you watch. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Get extra after show audio by becoming a Patreon. Kick in a little more and you can get some Cinerealist swag like a mug or a t-shirt. Those types of things. You could also leave us an Apple Podcast review at Apple Podcasts, 5 stars only, or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelist.com, REEL with an S on the end. Send a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion. We've been threatening to do another listener email episode. We probably could have done it this week, but maybe next week.
I don't know. Next week might be a big episode based on your Discord comments.
Yes. Yeah. Next week's movie is going to be interesting. We'll see.
We'll get to listener email within the month of May.
Sure.
We'll call
Hopefully.
it mailbag.
It's definitely piling up, so we need to get to it at some point for sure.
We speak about getting to them like every week. Like we get them and do them right away.
We did get into a pattern of that, and then we fell out of it again.
We kind of fell out of it, so we get back into it.
Yep, for sure. All right, that's it for housekeeping. Let's get into our main event film for the week. This movie, the one we're about to discuss that we have not revealed yet, is in theaters and on premium VOD now. The title of the movie is Creed 3. Here's a clip.
Hey, my man. Can I help you?
Let me get an autograph.
Nah, I ain't signing no autographs, but you get off my car.
Oh, homie. You don't remember me, huh? Come a long way from bumming rides from your mom.
Damn. Boy, you had me. Damien.
Yeah, just got back to the hood, stopped by the old gym, but
Yeah, we upgraded a couple years ago.
see.
Damn, it's
Been a minute.
in a minute.
That was Creed 3, a 2023 American sports drama film directed, produced, and starring Michael B. Jordan in his directorial debut with a movie by Ryan Coogler and Keenan Coogler. I'm assuming they're brothers.
And Ryan directed the first Creed movie.
Did he not direct the second one too?
I don't know if he directed the second one or not. That's a great question.
I don't know that either. So you'll have to let me know.
I'm going to let you know right now. You keep talking about Creed 3.
All right. This movie stars Michael B. Jordan, Tessa Thompson, Jonathan Majors, Wood Harris, Mila Davis Kent, Florian Montanou, and Felicia Rashad, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Creed 3 is: Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair assessment of this movie.
I like that.
I will also say that Creed 2 was directed by Stephen Capel Jr.,
Okay.
who is also directing Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
Interesting.
The new Transformers movie.
All right.
Yep. Which my son keeps asking me to go see. So we'll see. That may be on a top 10, last 10 at some point in the near future.
Has he seen Bumblebee?
No, he's seen not a single Transformers movie. Could he see Bumblebee?
You could introduce him to Bumblebee because Bumblebee was like focuses on less Transformers. So it's a little less like just like rah, tons of stuff at you. You know what I mean? It's a very like streamlined version of a Transformers movie.
Okay.
So there might be less like, who's that? What's that? Who's that? Because it just kind of like introduces you to a couple things and then those things are in the movie. And it has a much better central human character
than Shia LaBeouf.
than any other Transformers movie. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna show him a single Michael Bay Transformers. He wants to watch those when he's older. That's on you, kid. But
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Enough tangenting. Creed 3. We've both seen the movie. We had both seen the first 2 Creed movies, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Oddly enough, the Creed series is, despite having come out during the lifetime of this podcast, we've never actually talked about Creed movies on this
is your
podcast.
first time discussing a Creed movie on this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, they've come up. We've talked about them in top 10 last 10s here and there, but never like 2 of us watched it with the intention of talking about it at length. And so we're going to do that today with Creed 3.
Well, so, I think since we already brought up the franchise, we can get into it really quick.
Okay.
I think a lot of people didn't expect a lot from Creed at all.
Mm-hmm.
Of a sort of a reboot Lego sequel to the Rocky franchise.
Yeah.
And I think Creed surprised people. It surprised me for sure as being much better than it needed to be for being a Lego sequel with Michael B. Jordan, who was a rising star at the time, but I mean, he hadn't done the movies he's known for yet. I think
we
people
weren't
knew more from TV than they did from movies.
Absolutely. We weren't used to seeing him on screen yet.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And, like the idea that, Sylvester Stallone's back for another Rocky movie.
Right. Well, I think they did that Balboa movie.
Correct.
That was between like the original Rocky series and the Creed kind of rebootish type.
Yeah, that was
thing.
like mid 2000s that one came out.
Right. And that in that movie, I think for what it is, it's watchable. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say that's like the best Rocky movie out there, but it wasn't offensively bad or like it didn't feel like a cash in. Maybe if they had tried to make a couple more, it would have felt more like a cash in, but they kind of just did that one and then stopped, even though it did fine at the box office. But it was already a little ridiculous that like Sylvester Stallone would be in another boxing movie actually boxing. And so when they announced Creed, it was kind of like, really, another Sylvester Stallone boxing movie?
Like we're doing
but
this
they
again.
did it so well with him being the mentor in the original Creed. Like it reminds me of like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies today, right? Like he's never taken the mentor role in any of his movies. It's like
he's
Sylvester
still the star. He's still the one doing the action.
Right. And I think the first Creed movie is like a perfect balance of legacy and new blood. And I think Sylvester Stallone was game to be in that movie because it respected his boxing movies. You know what I mean? Like his DNA was directly attached to how Creed was going to work his way into the boxing world. And so even though he's not the one throwing the punches or getting the win, he's helping the young person do that and continue the legacy of movies that he liked being in type of thing. And so I think that was kind of why it was good. Like a Creed movie without Sylvester Stallone kind of being humble as a star, as like just accepting that like he's not going to be the boxer anymore and passing the torch in a way, I think really worked. It certainly worked for me, and I think it worked for most people. It didn't feel fake. It felt like that's how it should be.
I think Creed also works because of the director, Ryan Coogler, who's objectively good, if not great director. I mean, I know we'll be talking about Michael B. Jordan movies coming up, and those two work together very closely.
Yeah.
And,
for sure.
I didn't get a chance to rewatch Creed, but I did get a chance to rewatch some of the fight scenes on YouTube. And the one that stuck out to me that I remember the most, that I was looking forward to watching again, was that first, I guess it's the first or second one, but it's the oneer boxing match where it's 6 minutes long and it's a single take multi-round boxing match between Creed and another guy. And it's done so well. It's probably a fake oneer, but it's done so well, and it keeps the energy and the excitement of that boxing match going the whole time. And I can't imagine someone who's not Ryan Coogler pulling it off as well as that, or just showing his bona fides on screen right there.
Yeah, it also does the best out of the whole series, out of all three, at like presenting what a boxing match looks like from the home viewer. Like the last match, the fake HBO-ness of it and stuff like that is like so good and feels like what it would be if you were watching the event at home, and yet still managed to put you in the ring at key moments so that, you know, it's heightened drama compared to just watching a real boxing match at home. Yeah, it was, I agree. It was just better than anybody thought it would be. And I think it's legitimately like a good idea for a reboot that had all the pieces in place to actually execute on the idea.
Right.
And again, to give Sylvester Stallone credit, he could have been a prima donna about it and been like, I don't want to be in a boxing movie unless I'm the guy. I'm the main guy. And instead he was kind of like, I don't have to be the main guy. I can be like one step below the main guy and still like, you know, be a presence in the movie.
He was kind of a prima donna for Creed 2, because in Creed he does not have a writer's credit, but in Creed 2 he does. And I think he was more of a behind the scenes prima donna. Like I think he was game for doing Creed because like you said, it respected Rocky, his legacy. But I feel like for Creed 2 he was like, well, here's a movie I want to make. And Creed 2 is where they bring back Ivan Drago. I've actually never seen, but Creed 2 is like the sequel to Rocky 4 is my understanding, where Drago's back, but now his son's fighting, and it's, you know, it's as much about Creed versus Drago's son as it is about Rocky versus Drago, who are now using these two young men as proxies for their own conflict they've had.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The second one, which, you know, we'll get into ranking Michael B. Jordan movies.
Yep.
But I don't prefer the second one compared to the first one for sure. I don't think I'm alone in that opinion either.
I think it's a pretty shared opinion. Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad movie. It just seems like the ones that I tend to be drawn to are like when the actual boxer has a reason to care about this. And not the, you know, I think that was probably the problem with the second one, is it seemed more related to Rocky than it did Creed himself.
Yeah, it was Rocky was the one who wanted to settle this score. And I was watching the Drago fight, or Drago Jr. fight too. And, you know, there's so much of it was like, are you in pain? Good. Push through the pain. Feed the pain. I was like, oh, I don't think pain's a good thing at all. Like,
sure.
You know, I do jujitsu. It's a combat sport, and I'm trying to avoid pain at all costs. Like if something hurts, I'm not going to keep doing that. I could try something different. So
right. Or if you're in enough pain, you should quit. You know what I mean? This is a sport, not life and death.
Yeah. It just kind of seems like an old school mentality of, you know, like pain's good. And I'm like, I don't know. Pain's your body telling you things are not good right now.
Right. Yeah, I felt like in Creed 2, you still have this Sylvester Stallone presence. I think it's still respectful to the original Rocky. It just seemed to lean more on, you know, the history than what the first one did. The first one, like the history was there, but it was more vague and implied. And in the second one, it seems more direct. And I also didn't fully love, like, I don't know, the Tessa Thompson, Michael B. Jordan relationship in the first one seemed fresh and new. And in the second one was just kind of like, they fight a lot in that movie. And that's it.
I agree. I remember there being a lot of conflict between them in the second movie.
Right.
And she was fun. And not she was fun. Her character was an interesting addition because her character is a bit of like the Adrian, but is also, she's not just there to support him. Like she has her own career, her own life, and she also has her own wishes for him too.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that bothers me about the first two, and they kind of drop it in the third, which we will get to in a minute.
It's, like you said, these have never been discussed on the podcast, so it's good to get them on now.
Is like, I'm sure it's just a matter of personal taste, but I honestly think her music is garbage. like I would never. They kind of treat her music as like it's great and amazing, and like she's like a music star, and like all these people come out to
And
see
she's
her.
like this
and
big
I'm
producer
like,
and everything.
this is the most like, I don't know, basic, droney, EDM EDM soul bull crap. I don't know. I just
it's like
can't imagine it
SoundCloud
ever
beats
being
with someone crooning on top of them.
Yeah, I can't imagine it ever being popular anywhere ever. This movie universe treats it like it's amazing.
Right. In the third one, there is a performance not by Tessa Thompson, but of someone performing her character's music.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like grooving and jamming. And I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, this is not my music whatsoever. Like, I cannot connect with this at all. But that's also could be an age thing, James.
It could be. I don't know. I just can't imagine. It's not that it's garbage. It's just it's unrealistic to me that music is as popular as they make it out to be in this universe.
But isn't that kind of what like Billie Eilish does? Like, doesn't she kind of croon over like EDM droney beats?
I don't listen to Billie Eilish, so I don't know.
I don't know a ton. Well, she does like I'm a Bad Guy. That's her one big song.
I remember hearing it a couple times. Yeah.
Right. So she's a pretty big star right now.
Sure.
And I would say she's kind of doing that lo-fi thing that was popular in this movie.
Interesting. I think I'd probably have to listen to more Billie Eilish.
Right.
But in the context of this movie, I don't get it. But it doesn't matter. It's not a big part of the movie. Just every time they cut to a scene of her on stage singing, and it's like random over like crappy, Fruit Loop beats and stuff like that. It's like, okay, come on. What are we doing here? Nobody would really care about this.
That's right. We came to talk about boxing movies and review the music.
All right. Well, Zach's not here, so we got to talk music.
Yeah, I really want Zach's opinion on Billie Eilish and SoundCloud and
sure
soul EDM in general.
All right. We're a solid 30 minutes in. Let's talk Creed 3.
Right.
The movie we just watched. What'd you think of it?
So I was looking forward to this movie just because of all the stuff we already talked about with the previous Creed movies.
Right.
Jonathan Majors, I think it needs to be addressed a little bit.
Yeah, I was concerned about like how we should approach that.
So I would say when this movie was announced, he was one of the draws for me because I think he is an interesting actor. He's been in a lot of diverse projects recently. Like, was he in The Five Bloods, the Spike Lee movie?
I don't know about that, but I thought he was in that Western that was on Netflix that had an all African American class.
Oh, what was that? That was good. I really liked that movie.
I'm forgetting the name of it too, but
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he was the star of that. Obviously, he's been popular as Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. So anyway, I like Michael B. Jordan. I was curious to see what he's going to direct. Jonathan Majors was a draw for me. Unfortunately, Jonathan Majors, we've learned some things about him in the last couple of weeks. And that's definitely, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that he is like that as a human because I like his acting and I was interested where his career's going. But now at the same time, I'm okay with moving on from Jonathan Majors. I don't know if he'll be completely like canceled or I don't know if his career's done, but he's definitely hitting a huge speed bump right now of his own creation.
It feels like he's not canceled because they didn't pull movies from movie theaters. You know what I mean? Like it feels like people that have worked with him or at least have projects on the books, you know what I mean? Like that have already shot. They're just trying to make it chill so that they can release their movies without replacing him type of thing. It does not seem like it's hit mass, acceptance that Jonathan Majors is a person that people don't want to see anymore.
I think when when there was one accusation, people are like, ooh, okay, let's see where this goes.
Right.
And then multiple accusations, and then like his agent dropped him and the army dropped him.
Right, but like Marvel hasn't dropped him.
So that's the big one. Is will Marvel recast Kang? Which is super easy for them to do. Like, A, because who cares? They've recast people before. And B, they already have this whole multiverse established. So you could like literally say one sentence of, oh, I'm this multiverse version of Kang. And you have the exact same movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be the big thing, is what happens with Marvel. And will more things come out where Marvel's like, we can't work with this guy. We can't have him being, I mean, essentially Kang is the face of the Marvel, of the MCU right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's that or Ant-Man. I don't know who else is the MCU face. So
no, I mean, they expected him to weave through all the movies until like phase 6.
Exactly.
So if they're going to do it, they should do it quickly.
Right.
As far as like finding a replacement, I would not get too far into this.
So anyway, I was, for all those reasons, I was looking forward to this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this movie was fine.
Sure.
It's it's definitely it's a boxing movie with not a lot of boxing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily why I come to see these movies, but this movie starts with Creed. He's retired, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's now a mogul, he's a promoter, he's running a gym, lives in a very nice house with his family.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just kind of waiting for him to put the gloves back on, because you knew eventually it was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the reasons I enjoy these movies is I enjoy watching Michael B. Jordan as a boxer. I think he's a good acting boxer.
Mm-hmm.
And in this movie, I was just kind of waiting for him to finally get in the ring, which does happen. And I will say that final boxing scene, I was pretty engaged by.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely, Michael B. Jordan was making some choices with that final boxing scene.
Sure.
That I was not expecting. And I was kind of like, ooh, okay, like, where are we going with this? And how is this going to end? And I was a little disappointed that it actually ended how I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of actually hoping that, I don't know, they would just like stop fighting and talk. Like, how amazing would right? Because these two characters have this
they, like,
huge
sat
history.
down and had a therapy session right in the middle of it.
Well, right. I mean, like, imagine if, like, here they are literally beating each other up because of this history they have. There's all these unsaid things about this friendship, and then how one got in trouble and one didn't, and you know, like, essentially they're trying to get it out through boxing.
Uh-huh.
And even though the Jonathan Majors character is presented as kind of the villain,
mm-hmm.
and he definitely does some villainy things in this movie, I kind of felt bad for him throughout.
Sure.
Like, I think part of the reason why he is the way he is because of the trauma and the damage that he had. And instead of them being like, oh, let's see who can punch the longest to see how we finish this, I think it would have been interesting if they had, like, in that last round, just stopped fighting, or like they're all tied up and they're like talking to each other and just say, like, you know what, boxing's not going to solve this issue. Maybe we should just talk to each other, because that's kind of what this whole movie's about, is
mm-hmm.
sort of unsaid things between these two men. So yeah, I did think it was an interesting movie about masculinity without trying to get too like deep into it.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you know, about sometimes you can just talk to your friend, or, you know,
sure.
It may be hard. Maybe you haven't seen someone for 30 years. You have this history, but communication. This movie about communication, James.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Right.
It really
like
is.
the whole letters thing. There's lots of like opportunity for communication that didn't happen here. And then, you know, people get the wrong idea about things, and then it snowballs from there.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I definitely like this more than I liked the second one.
Oh, really?
I do miss.
Okay.
I do miss the Rocky stuff.
Yeah, he's not in this at all.
He's not even mentioned.
They don't mention him. I swear they mentioned him once.
I don't remember. I'm not going to draw a line in the sand, but I don't remember them mentioning him once.
I want to say at one point, Creed says, like, that's how Rocky would do it, or something like that. But
I don't know.
Right, he's not a major presence. He's not even a minor presence in this movie.
Right. He's like so minor they don't even play the Rocky theme, and they've done that in both of the other Creed movies.
Yeah, this movie had a hip hop soundtrack.
Right. And there's moments where they like dance right up to the line of actually kicking into the Rocky theme, especially at the end of that final fight. But they don't quite go fully into the dun 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 dun
the flying high now.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's because Rocky wasn't in it, and it might feel false to kind of play that without like having Rocky in it at all. I don't know. I kept waiting I had heard that Sylvester Stallone wasn't in it, that he was upset about it, those types of things. Evidently they offered him a role, but it wasn't meaty enough for him to want to be in it. And I kind of wish he had kind of followed his own lead from the first one and was just in them less over time. Like, how hard would it have been for Creed to be in the dressing room right before the final match, and like he gets a phone call and it's Rocky just giving him like a 30-second pep talk. You know what I mean? That would have been enough to be like, oh yeah, Sylvester Stallone still cares about him, and they still talk. We just didn't see those conversations, type of thing.
Or if you don't get Stallone, have it be a text message, like it pops up Rocky.
Exactly.
It's just like, hey, hang in there, man, or something like that. Like, oh, cool. Creed and Rocky still text.
Have Tessa Thompson come in and be like, I just got off the phone with Rocky.
I just got
like
you're not
he said good luck. Yeah, good luck, and like dodge to the left or whatever.
Yeah, right, whatever. Yeah. So.
Just some kind of more acknowledgement that like has been a part of the story so far, and we're not doing that this time. But we're also not just going to ignore that happened. So I kind of missed that. But overall, I liked that it was more of a personal story specifically to Creed. Like, I think that's the transition they should be making. If they're going to make 5 of these like they did with the original Rocky movies, they have to be more directly personal to Creed and less about his mentor. And so I liked that. I just wish there was a natural progression that way, as opposed to like, for some reason between movie 2 and movie 3, we've chopped off that relationship that was fairly major in the first 2.
Right. Yeah. He's just gone. Yep.
Right. So I missed that. I do think Jonathan Majors, for all his personal life, it clouds it, is a good actor and is really easy to watch on screen, even when he's doing things that are kind of hammy. Like, he hams up a lot in this movie, I would say.
Like that scene on the beach that they're having. Yeah, for
sure. That scene, or even like the scene when Creed's on CNN or ESPN, whatever, and he like calls in.
Yeah,
it was a little silly and felt like it wouldn't really happen.
Can you direct call a show like that? Is that a call in show that he was on, or do you just like have a direct number to the studio?
I have no clue.
Okay.
No clue at all.
I don't watch like sports shows whatsoever. So
sure. I don't either. So and I understand like the filmmaking choices that Michael B. Jordan made. But I also just miss the fact that it, like, is it a spoiler to say how they presented the final fight? That's not a spoiler, would you say?
No, I mean, it's not a spoiler. I think I already kind of talked about how the fight ended anyway. So
we don't have to say the ending. I'm saying like the final fight in this movie, unlike every other boxing movie in this series, cuts to like the audience goes away completely, and they're fighting in a ring surrounded by smoke, and it's very like,
and jail cell bars.
Right. And jail cell bars. And it's like a visual representation of the emotions behind the actual fighting. And like the fight itself slows down. So it's no longer like a really fast slugfest. It's like they're taking their time and there's these exchanges. And the audience, like visually, it becomes very clear that they were against a green screen, you know what I mean? Which they were every time in every of these movies. They've been against green screens, but this is the first time they kind of drop that, and you enter kind of like a surreal alternate universe where The emotions of the fight are being visually represented by their surroundings. And it's just a choice compared to everything else that the series has ever given you. They decided to like take a match and actually, just change the presentation in like kind of a wild way. Because the movies have always been very grounded in realism in their presentation.
Right. Yep.
Like starting from Rocky 1, there's just never been a dream sequence or anything like that. I don't necessarily think it was a dream sequence. I think they're just trying to communicate to the audience the emotions that are going on.
Yeah, I saw it as visual language for us, or to show the state of mind of these two friends, fighters, and how this is not about a championship. This is not about who's the best.
Right.
This is about this history that they have and trying to absolve themselves of that history, or to work it out, however you want to say it.
Yeah. I think I'm probably still working out how I feel about it. Not that it's a big deal. It just is definitely a change compared to how the series, not only this one, but the one that preceded it, presents reality. You know what I mean? It's like the format of the movie. It's like if all of a sudden, this is a bad example. I was going to say if all of a sudden Star Wars had dream sequences, but that actually happened. I'm trying to think of what else.
It'd be like if John Wick had a dream. I mean, John Wick's fights can be surreal anyway, but they still are grounded within reality.
Sure.
It would be right if John Wick was fighting and all of a sudden he was in like an empty smokeless room fighting Donnie Yen. And it was a representation of their past friendship and not just a fight they're having.
Right. Yeah, that's essentially what this is here.
Yeah.
And then also give John Wick like 40 years of cinematic history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's what this is. It's a continuation of something that's been around since the late 70s that has not changed in style of presentation once until the final fight of this third movie of the reboot series. It just seems like an odd choice to kind of abandon that that world reality or presentation reality of the series for like this ethereal, like emotionful thing. I don't know.
So I actually,
it's a weird choice. I didn't hate it.
I liked that choice. I thought it made this movie more interesting for me, because up until that final fight, this movie was kind of going in the exact direction I was expecting it to go.
Right.
And you know, there's even this trope of like, we're giving you this flashback, and every time we do the flashback, we're revealing more and more of what happens. And like from the first or second flashback, I knew exactly what happened. Like it wasn't some big mystery or twist of this past they had together. So that just kind of felt silly. Like, oh, this is how you do it. But so I don't know. For me, like this movie was going along just fine. And then we got to that final fight and it got ethereal and surreal. And I was like, oh, okay, this is different. This is interesting. And I think I would have enjoyed this movie more if Michael B. Jordan was making more of those just odd choices. If he was like, you know what, like I understand the history of these movies and the visual language, but I want to do it my way. And it seems like he finally decided by that final fight, I'm gonna do it my way. Where maybe he had more creative ideas up his sleeve and just wasn't comfortable or wasn't ready or wasn't allowed to do them throughout the movie.
Yeah. Could be. I also think, again, I didn't hate the choice, but I do think it's a little bit of a cop-out. Like, the movies have managed to have emotional stakes without having to present visuals like that. Okay. You know what I mean? Just the fight alone or the lead up to the fight, in combination with the drama of the actual fight, have been plenty to push prior movies in this series along. And it kind of felt like this one too, to me, it could have just been a fight. You know what I mean? You could have found other ways to do high beats without transitioning to like a totally different presentation. But it's whatever. It's the 8th movie in a series of boxing movies.
Ninth movie.
Ninth? Okay. So
because there's Rocky 1 through 5, right?
Then Balboa.
Rocky, Balboa, that's 6, and then the 3 Creed movies, so we're at 9. Yeah.
You're right. This is number 9, so I mean, wait, you're gonna get mad because they changed one thing. It's not a big deal. in the big picture. Yeah. So ultimately, I liked it. I also we don't have to say who won, but I wasn't super excited about the outcome either, to be honest.
That's why I didn't want a winner. I just wanted a little like
A draw.
mid-ring conversation.
They both get injured at the exact same moment, type of thing.
Well, don't they do that anyway? Don't they like
they do a double knockout,
a
for
double
like
knockout,
a second.
not double knockout, but they definitely do like a hit each other at the exact same moments thing. So
yeah.
I will say I had a little issue with the actual boxing.
And because it was dirty boxing.
Well, no, not the dirty. Just the presentation was different. Now, again, I don't watch boxing.
There was more first person than there was in the prior two.
But also, like, I guess the choreography of the boxing was very quick, where it was a lot of like quick jabs and then a duck and then like counters, and it seemed a little rehearsed. Like it was cool to watch, but I felt like I was watching a kung fu boxing movie. In the fact that like when I do watch UFC, which is rare now, there's very even those moments. There's very rare of like 10 hits or moves in succession. Usually only like 2 or 3 things happen. Like someone does something, someone may counter, and then maybe someone could counter that. But in this movie, there'd be like quick jabs, and then one guy ducks, the other guy tries to punch, and then the first guy misses that, and he goes for an uppercut. But the other guy dodges the uppercut and gets. And it's just like there's like 6 things happening here, and I just don't think that is how actual boxing works. That like there's 6 rapid moves in a couple of seconds.
Sure.
It was cool to watch, and I'm sure that they sold it just in their intensity. But again, this is like Zach watching King Richard and be like, I don't believe that tennis. This is me watching. You don't
know anything about boxing.
I have no reference point for boxing whatsoever, but this did not feel like real boxing to me. This felt like movie boxing to me.
Sure.
Like it was cool to look at, but I don't think it was an accurate representation of actual boxing.
Yeah, I mean, can I be honest? As somebody who like just watched all 3 movies in a row, I honestly don't really buy Michael B. Jordan as a boxer. I mean, I think he's a movie boxer.
Yeah,
but I don't buy him as like a guy. I can't suspend disbelief enough to be like, yeah, that guy would be champion.
Versus like De Niro or Rock or Stallone.
No. Versus like a real life boxer.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I just don't buy him as hard enough.
Is he too pretty? Is that why?
Maybe. It could be that. Could absolutely be that.
He's too handsome to be a boxer.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've never fully bought him. I like watching him in these movies. And he's fine for a movie boxer. But back when I used to watch Rocky movies, I don't think I was consciously doing this, but I could imagine Sylvester Stallone actually being a boxer.
Okay, yeah.
I can't imagine that with Michael B. Jordan.
What about Majors? Can you imagine him as a boxer?
I actually could imagine Majors as a boxer who would go against somebody who's technically proficient, who would just clean his clock. You know what I mean? Like, I think they did a good job. Yeah, they did a good job of making it be like, he's good because he fights dirty and he hits hard.
Right.
And so if you give him those openings, he's going to take them. That seemed, that worked for me. Plus, Jonathan Majors is a massive dude. Or maybe just they shoot him in this movie like he looks like a massive dude. He just looks like a monster in this movie.
He looked pretty. I mean, Michael B. Jordan's like looks pretty bulked up for this, but yeah, Jonathan Majors just looked wide.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Anything else with Creed 3?
Yeah, my last complaint.
Okay.
And this is just a sponsorship thing. That first fight was in the crypto.com arena, which they said at least 4 times during that fight.
Really?
Oh yeah. It just felt like crypto.com had like paid for to have their name said. They're like, live from Crypto.com Arena. And then, they'd be like, we've never seen something this crazy at Crypto.com Arena. And they just kept saying it over and over again. And
Sure.
it took me out of the movie. Because any of these like stadiums where they just do a website, I know it's a real stadium thing they can do, but it just sounds so fake, like the TurboTax.com stadium.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, it just took me out of it.
I really want to tell you something about Beau is Afraid right now, but I'm afraid it'll ruin your viewings. Maybe
don't tell me anything about Beau is Afraid.
All right. Well, this is what I'll tell you.
No, don't tell me
totally
anything.
unspecific. Totally unspecific.
Geez.
There's a moment of what I think might be product placement in Beau is Afraid.
Okay.
They literally name drop a company. And I was like, why did you do that? Like, the movie's totally timeless other than this one mention.
Okay.
It drove me nuts.
I will now
I don't even think they were paid for it.
3-hour movie looking for this one moment.
I don't even think they were paid for it. It's like a name drop in the middle of a sentence that like has nothing. There's no reason why it has to be in there. And yet
it just dates the movie because they mentioned that.
In 10 years, it's going to most likely date the movie.
Just like Creed 3, when people are to watch this, they'd be like, oh yeah, remember Crypto? That was fun.
Yeah. Or like you watch movies from 15 years ago and when they mention MySpace or Friendster and you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly when this movie was made. That's like the crypto.com in this movie or the one in Beau is Afraid. I hate it when filmmakers do that because if they had that in there, you probably could have watched this at any time. It would have been fine.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody would know that it was before crypto completely crashed and nobody paid attention to it. Not that that's going to happen really long term, but anyway, the movie we were thinking of with Jonathan Majors that you liked was The Harder They Fall.
The Harder They Fall. That's the one.
Yeah.
Was he in The Five Bloods?
I don't see that.
Okay. What was he in before The Harder They Fall?
He was in Last Black Man in San Francisco, which I enjoyed.
Okay.
He was in a movie called Devotion from 2022, which I saw and
that's
enjoyed.
The pilot movie.
Yeah, the pilot movie.
Yep.
Those are like his top line movies. He was in Hostiles.
Okay.
I'm 100% wrong. He was in Da 5 Bloods. You're right.
He was. Okay, I thought that's the first time I saw him was Da 5 Bloods, and then I saw him again in The Harder They Fall. So yeah, I'm disappointed. And I'm a little sad that I don't get to see more Jonathan Majors, probably. But it's also, he's been beating up women, it sounds like. So I'm also okay with the fact that, I may not be seeing more of him.
Sure. Yep. I'm the same way. All right. Let's letterbox Creed 3. I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay. I'm going to give it 3 stars.
Okay.
And I think you like this one a little bit better than I do. So that probably makes about sense.
I definitely like it better than the second one for sure.
Okay.
And I really like the first. I think the first is like, if we were doing a top 10 boxing, it would be in there. The first
one I don't know if I've seen 10 boxing movies that aren't just Creed movies and one Rocky. And I don't know if I can do a top 10 boxing movies.
You don't think you've seen 10 boxing movies? Legitimate boxing movies, not movies that happen to have boxing in it.
Like off the top of my head, I can think of 3 Creed movies, the first Rocky, and Raging Bull.
Okay.
I've not seen Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, or Balboa.
All right.
I've seen Warrior, but that's an MMA movie.
Yeah.
Oh, The Hurricane. Is that a boxing movie? It's about a boxer.
That's a boxing movie.
Okay, so there's
The Hurricane, also Ali.
Haven't seen Ali.
Movie. You haven't seen Ali?
Will Smith is way too tall to be playing Muhammad Ali.
I think you could watch Ali. It would be okay.
I probably could. Is that Ang Lee? Did he direct that?
I don't think so. But
okay.
Maybe. No, I don't think so. I don't know who it was. I'm pretty sure they got a black director for that movie.
Probably. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So a 3 and a 3.5 for Creed 3. Now we're going to run down our top 10 Michael B. Jordan movies.
Let's rank some movies.
Why don't you
That's right,
go
Kyle.
first, Kyle?
So I have only seen 10 Michael B. Jordan movies,
Okay.
and 2 of those I saw this week.
So some of these are on your top 10 list, but more by default because they're one of the 10 that you've seen.
Correct. So this is not a ranking of my top 10 Michael B. Jordan movies. This is a ranking of the 10 Michael B. Jordan movies I have seen.
Gotcha.
And some of them are cameos, like my number 10, which is Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Okay.
Which I mentioned last week on our Air podcast. This is the Space Jam sequel. Still haven't seen Space Jam. And Michael B. Jordan is one of the best parts of this movie because he makes a cameo. You're expecting Michael Jordan, and then Michael B. Jordan shows up.
Oh, that's the joke?
That's the joke, yeah.
Interesting.
That's the joke. And he's on screen for a hot minute. He is charming. He kind of laughs about it. He gives a quote from Friday Night Lights, and then he's gone. So actually, I want to just quickly mention that my first exposure to Michael B. Jordan was through television. He was on The Wire season 1 as Wallace, as this kid who was involved in the drug trade, and totally rememberable character. Like there's a ton of characters on The Wire over the 5 seasons it was on. And even though he's on 1 season, dude, I cannot forget Wallace whatsoever, both his character and his performance. And then he again popped up on Friday Night Lights. I think he started in season 3 and was on that for a couple seasons. So I was aware of who he was. And then I want to say it wasn't until maybe Creed was the next movie I saw him in. Where I was like, oh, that's the guy from Wired, Friday Night Lights. And oh, he's a good actor. Like I knew he was good from television, but then to see him successfully transfer over to movies was pretty cool.
Sure.
So yeah, even on Space Jam: A New Legacy, just seeing him on screen made me happy for a moment.
I like too that he has a good humor over the idea that like people see his name and automatically think the guy who's far more famous than him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You wonder if like that gets annoying. Probably does, but he seems to have some level of humor about it.
I think he does now. I think as a kid, it was really weighed on him because, Michael, like when he was a kid, Michael Jordan was probably at his prime or just retiring.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm sure he got teased a lot as a kid. And he even mentioned, like, I think he called someone out like, hey, you teased me in middle school about being Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Don't call me baby Michael Jordan or something.
Exactly. But like now that he has his own success, he's put the B in there to distinguish himself from being Michael Jordan. He can laugh about it. Yeah.
That's surprising he just didn't rename himself. Like people do that in Hollywood all the time. Change your last name.
Who...
Or go by Mike Jordan or Marty Jordan or something.
Not Marty Jordan. No. Anyway, yep. So anyway, number 10, Space Jam: A New Legacy.
All right. My number 10 is a movie called Red Tails, which is directed by Anthony Hemingway, who has an interesting filmography. It's the only movie he's directed. And if you look at his filmography, it's like 30 episodes of TV.
Okay.
Red Tails. 30 episodes of TV. So it's like he just took a break in the middle and made this one movie. But other than that, he's a TV director.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. The other kind of reason why this movie is notable is it is produced by George Lucas. It's one of the rare movies post Star Wars. Episode 1, 2, and 3 producer credits that George Lucas has taken. And it's a movie that George Lucas wanted to direct after the prequels and then just never did, basically. And then in 2012, they finally got a director. They got a cast together. They made it. The movie stars Terrence Howard and Cuba Gooding Jr. And certainly Michael B. Jordan's in the mix. But this is, pre Fruitvale Station, I would say, which is when most people discovered Michael B. Jordan. So he doesn't have a large presence in the movie, But I do have a Red Tail story that I want to tell real quick.
Oh, please.
So
yes.
I saw this movie at a screening, like a special screening. It was at the time that I would get invited to these screenings because I was running a movie website. And some of them were press screenings. Some of them were like radio promotional screenings, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And normally you just go and it's not a big deal and whatever. This one, me and my buddy, we went, and when we got there, there was like a bunch of people that were really dressed up at the movie theater. And we were like, wow, what's going on? And then we get there, we get to like the actual door to the theater, and they're like, do you have your RSVP? We're like, no, but we think we're probably on a list or whatever. And so they pull out this list and they find us on the list and they're like, okay. And they check us in. And then the people right behind us checked in as well. And they were like dressed to the nines.
Oh.
And then we were like, oh, we're going to a screening with all these people that are dressed up.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So then we go into the movie theater and we sit down, and we are the only ones that are not dressed up.
Oh.
On top of that, we are the very few white people in the audience.
Oh.
So not only are we not dressed up and sticking out in that way, but we weren't the only white people, but we were one of the very few who were white and also not dressed up. Like, you know what I mean? Like we stuck out in two ways.
How disrespectful of you to not dress up for this movie.
Yeah. So then like the screening's about to start, and like somebody comes out and gives this impassioned talk about how movies about African Americans are not made by Hollywood, and how George Lucas stuck his neck out and put up this money for this movie that's probably not going to make its money back, and blah, blah, blah. And like just how great it is that this movie, you know, has finally been made because it's finally telling, you know, Black history and blah, blah, blah. And just me and my friend were like so uncomfortable because we did not expect all this. Like it was the first time I sat in a movie theater and realized like everybody else in this room has a bigger attachment to what we're about to watch.
Right. Yeah. You're just here to see a movie.
I was just there to see a movie that George Lucas produced. You know what I mean? I hadn't really thought about the overarching, like what this movie might mean for other people in other situations. And then they said, by the way, we actually have some actual Tuskegee Airmen in the theater with us. Will you please stand up? And then like 4 very old gentlemen stood up, and everybody gave them a standing ovation for like 5 minutes. And me and my friend are just standing there in our shorts and sandals and t-shirts, like clapping, like we are so in the wrong place right now.
Were you wearing a baseball cap, James?
The chances are good I was.
You probably were, yes.
For sure. And then we watched the movie and it was all fine. And then after the movie, there was like a cocktail hour, and me and my buddy were just like,
no,
we were out of there. We were like, we've already gotten away with murder by being in this room, which we should not have been in. I don't know.
No, I think there's something wrong with you being in the room. I think the fact that you guys didn't get the memo on dressing up is probably the worst crime there.
No, I mean, honestly, I think it was an event for a community that I'm not a part of.
Well, yeah, okay.
And then somebody invited me without fully thinking through.
True, yeah.
Like who they were inviting or what the purpose of the event was, obviously. Because if they thought it was that and they still wanted me to come, you say like, this is not a normal screening. This is like all the community leaders of this community are going to be in this room with you, dressed to the nines and making a big deal out of the fact that this movie came out. And it just, it was one of the weirdest screenings of my life. On top of that, it's not a great movie. So I kind of felt bad about that, which is why I think most people probably have never even heard of it because it came out, didn't make a huge splash and went away. Certainly a watchable movie, not a Michael B. Jordan movie, but better than like the 2 or 3 that didn't make my top 10 list. So guaranteed the rest of my 9 will be shorter than what I just said about Red Tails, my number 10.
I hope you have a crazy story about each one of these movies.
I don't.
So
I do not.
all right, my number 9 is my most recent Michael B. Jordan watch and my official 10th movie of his to round out 10, and that is 2021's Tom Clancy's Without Remorse.
I haven't seen this.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Okay.
This is based on the Tom Clancy book of the same name, which I'm not familiar with, but is an origin story for the John Kelly / John Clark character in the Tom Clancy universe, who I believe goes on to find the Rainbow Six team. So in this movie, Michael B. Jordan plays a Navy SEAL who is involved in a covert raid in Aleppo, Syria, that involves Russians. And then those Russians are then taking a revenge upon the Navy SEAL team that pulled off this secret raid. And he is trying to get to the bottom of this conspiracy. So this is a military thriller, is probably the best way to put it. If you ever, have you ever read a Tom Clancy book? I'm sure you've seen Tom Clancy movies like Clear and Present Danger and Jack Ryan.
When I was a teenager, my dad used to read them, and
Okay.
I read a couple because they were like lying around.
Yeah.
But I never really, cared.
Like got into them. Yeah.
Right.
I read a couple in high school, and like they were easy, fun reads. They're action packed. They read like a movie script. Like you see where all like the beats are, the fades to black are, the end scene, next scene starts. And even though I don't care for the Tom Clancy worldview of like there are bad actors that only can be solved by these extra legal teams, I do find them fun like airport reads because they're easy. Like I like reading Jack Reacher also. Because Jack Reacher goes down easy. I don't believe in the Jack Reacher worldview, but when you're trying to kill time on an airplane, it's pretty easy to consume those.
Sure.
And I mean, this movie it's okay. It's directed by, what's his name? Stefano Salama, who also directed the Sicario sequel, Day of Soldado, whatever it was called.
Soldado.
Day of Soldado. Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I have not. Is that worth
Totally
seeing?
worth seeing. I was not that it. I mean, it's not going to be what the first movie is,
Right.
but as like a second director making a sequel, and that movie deserves a sequel. Like the second one deserves a sequel. Spoiler free.
Yeah.
But when you see it, you'll be like, I want to see what happens next, and then they're probably never going to see that because it didn't do very well.
Yeah,
but I liked it.
Well, and I thought the action in this was competently directed, and I'm sure the action is probably decent in that Sicario sequel. This has just had an incredibly confusing and rushed plot where they're really trying to, is it the Russians? Is it the CIA? Is it the FBI? Is it, like they're trying to kind of pile it all on. And then you've got Michael B. Jordan, who's doing his darndest in the middle of this movie, but he's just not given a ton to work with. So I kind of wish this movie was good or did well enough. I think this is just thrown onto Amazon Prime back during the pandemic because I would love to see a Rainbow Six movie along those lines. But I think this movie did pretty poorly, and I don't doubt we'll be seeing anything Rainbow Six with Michael Jordan in it anytime soon. Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he needs an action franchise.
He was trying to do it here, and again, I think it's a combination of the movie and the pandemic just it did not work out for him.
Interesting. My number 9 is a movie from 2018 that I just watched like maybe a week ago called Fahrenheit 451.
Oh yeah.
Which is a like dystopian drama, I would say.
Yeah, based on the book.
Right, based on the book. I never read the book, so I don't know how loosely, but it feels like the book probably wasn't exactly this.
I mean,
I don't know.
The book is pretty famous and well regarded. So
right, like I think the gist of the book. Have you read the book?
I don't remember. I read a lot of dystopian books in middle school and high school. And I know a lot about this book, but I don't know if I know about it because I actually read it or because I just am aware of it culturally.
Right. Yeah, it's based on the Ray Bradbury book that was all about like censoring of media, right? It was
Right, so it's
essentially
about
like
censorship, yeah.
it was essentially like books, music, movies, basically any visual art, any art at all, like inspires people, and people are ultimately evil, and so we shouldn't inspire them.
Mhm.
We should tightly control what they're um, exposed to. And so in this movie, it's like in the future, and there's this police force that are actually the fire department because they light media on fire. They burn VHS, they burn books, they burn everything. And so they're the firemen because they create fire, not because they put it out. And Michael B. Jordan is one of these firemen who are really censors. And Michael Shannon plays kind of like his fire captain, who's like teaching him how to be a good fireman. And there's like a social media aspect to it where they're like being taped and people become a fan of like certain firemen and like they get followers, stuff like that. That's the part that I'm pretty sure is the original book.
Right, yeah.
That type of stuff. Just because social media didn't exist in the 1950s. So I don't know what the equivalent would have been. But anyway, it's fine. If you like Michael Shannon and Michael B. Jordan, it's interesting because it's two guys just committing to something that isn't fully working, I would say.
Mhm.
And you can see them doing everything they can to make what is on paper probably something that would have never fully worked without like a really interesting way to present it, possibly. I don't know. I'm willing to bet that like most directors who could have made this work would have never taken it on just because I don't know. It's not that interesting to begin with.
Mhm.
It's kind of silly. And so the more serious they get about it, the more silly it feels. And that's kind of my experience watching the movie. I was just kind of like, this is so serious about something that I understand is like, it's all supposed to be like an analogy of sorts or like a warning.
Right. It's sort of a metaphor about censorship and its
Right.
dangers.
But I'm trying to think like Gattaca, I think, does this well. There's like some sci-fi that like it's not like it's trying to be a comedy. I'm not saying Gattaca is trying to be a comedy, but it's creating like an alternate universe where like things don't function exactly how they do.
Well, Gattaca takes place in the future. It's a dystopian future.
This does too. This
Yeah.
takes place in the
Okay.
future. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other movies that just do the future thing well without or they Mad Max movies.
I mean,
I don't know. Where it's like
Mad Max is a completely it's the future, but things have collapsed.
right, but
There
that's
is
what
no
I mean. Like,
society, yeah.
it's like, but you're not gonna pick apart why it collapsed.
So you're saying with this movie, you don't believe the future it's presenting,
Right.
whereas
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Mad Max, you like, okay, I believe this world. Maybe I don't need every explanation about how we got here, but I believe that this is the world that we're in.
Or like earlier, you described like the John Wick movies as being based in reality.
Right. Yeah.
But like we accept that, like, there's this hotel you go to if you're a killer, and you know what I mean? Everybody follows the rules at that hotel.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
half the population seems to be, contract killers for some
Assassins
reason.
of some sort.
So like, even though it's grounded in reality, you can still have fun with it. This movie never fully got me there where I was like, okay, I understand this is reality, or you're presenting it as reality, but also it's this weird alternate thing. They just couldn't get me to where I bought into that type of thing. And that's a gentle balance. I think John Wick does well, but this one doesn't. That's why it's my number 9.
Nice. All right. My number 8 is a movie actually like better than my number 7, but there's not a lot of Michael B. Jordan in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put it at number 8, and that is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, the Black Panther sequel. Michael B. Jordan does make not
brief
a cameo,
appearance.
Appearance, right?
It's a cameo.
I mean, it's a cameo, but it's not like New Legacy is a cameo where he just shows up. The joke is raw Michael Jordan. and he's out.
He's got
Like,
one line.
Exactly. In this movie, he has a scene, and it is playing to the emotional core of the movie. But it's just
But
one
it's a
scene.
cameo. It's a cameo.
Okay. Sure.
I'm not complaining. I mean, you had to have 10 movies where Michael B. Jordan appeared on the screen, so I get it.
And he is on the screen in this movie. We reviewed Wakanda Forever on the show last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a movie for me where when it was focused on the grief, the trauma of them losing T'Challa / Chadwick Boseman, I thought it was a really good movie. And then the Namor stuff, I just thought was fine. That was not as interesting as how does this society recover from losing their leader / how are these actors recovering from losing their friend and colleague.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame that they killed the Michael B. Jordan movie in the first Black Panther, because not that they could have ever predicted it, but it would have been great if Michael B. Jordan could just kind of like step in as the reformed bad guy.
Right.
Black
Yeah.
Panther.
I
because
mean,
he kind of already was his own version of Black Panther.
For all we know, they'll recast Jonathan Majors with Michael B. Jordan as the new Kang / Killmonger and make him the multiverse bad guy.
Yeah.
So,
maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, not to go back to Jonathan Majors and his, real life issues, but I don't see too many people I don't see Michael B. Jordan out there saying like, I didn't know this about him and now I'm out on Jonathan Majors. You know what I mean? Like famous people are not publicly denouncing him.
Exactly. It's all like sponsors have dropped him. His agency has dropped him.
Right.
Maybe this project he was working on is being, or not this. I don't know. I don't know. Movies have been shown.
I haven't even heard of movies being canceled.
Yeah. I also feel like at the same time, if you probably your best bet is an actor is to say nothing. Like, I don't know if you want to condemn or I mean, obviously condemning behavior is a good thing, but
right.
I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not
I
sure
don't know.
about this.
I don't know what you're saying either. And I don't know what I would say either.
I don't know what you're saying either. Let's get off Jonathan Majors. That's just a pit trap we don't want to step into.
Sure. Okay. Were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. My number 8 was Fant Four Stick. Fant Four Stick.
Fant Four Stick.
Which is how it reads on the poster for some reason.
Because it's fantastic with the 4 in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know why you put it in the middle and like get rid of the A. I mean, I know why you would do it, but it's stupid. Much like the movie, but it's an interesting stupid.
Really? Okay.
I think so. So the guy who directed this, Josh Trank, also directed Chronicle, which is a movie I enjoy that will come up later on.
Sure, I'll pack on
my
later.
list.
Yeah.
And this movie is like a big swing at like a reimagining of the Fantastic Four. It's like, what if you took everything that everybody loved out of Fantastic Four and just were left with the base personalities of everybody, and you tried to make like a Batman toned movie out of Fantastic Four. If that sounds awful to you, that's what the movie is. And so I think people didn't want Fantastic Four to be Batman toned. And so when the movie came out, even though it has great pedigree behind it, as far as the actors go, and that there's really nothing wrong going on in the movie, like there's nothing that violates character traits or anything like that, other than the fact that it's not jokey fun time out in the sun. It's like dark and like treats the powers realistically, that type of stuff. People didn't like it. They didn't want it and they didn't like it. And they made their voices heard at the box office and the critics. I think it's like the lowest percentage comic book movie of all time or something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's pretty bad. But I think, I'm not saying you should watch it over other things, but if you want to watch something fairly brainless that will like recontextualize some of these characters for you, or if you just want like a decent history of like what comic book movies could be here and there, I think this is a important one to watch, because it's like, what if somebody totally tried to reinvent a comic book series? while also like not violating the core of it, which is things that they do in comic books all the time, but they really haven't done it in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was a little too soon, and maybe, yeah, I don't have a problem with the movie. Like if you watch it as kind of this oddball thing, you'll be like, why do people hate this so much?
Okay. Yeah.
You won't be like, I can't wait to see part 2, but you'll also just be like, I think maybe people overreacted about this. It's not that bad. It's not 9% bad. It's like 50% bad type of thing. So yeah, my number 8, Fant 4-stick.
I thought I was going to ask you if you knew what the Rotten Tomato meter is, but I think you know already.
It's 9%.
9%. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we can move on from that to my number 7, which is the movie of the week, Creed 3.
Nice. My number 7 is another movie we already talked about, Creed 2.
My number 6 is Creed 2.
My number 6 is Creed 3.
All right. So we just flip-flop through theirs a little bit.
Yep.
All right. My number 5 is a 2019 movie, but I don't think people actually see this movie till 2020, called Just Mercy.
That's a bingo.
Oh, nice.
My number
All right.
5 is Just Mercy.
Is Just Mercy. Cool. Let's talk about Just Mercy then. I don't
All
think
right.
this has been discussed ever on the podcast, has it?
It's come up in top 10 last 10s.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
So this is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who also did Shang-Chi as well as Short Term 12,
Mhm.
which if people have not seen Short Term 12,
That's a good movie.
great movie. Yeah. Brie Larson breakout performance or early. I'm not sure if Room was her breakout per se, but definitely a performance to put her on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Just Mercy is a period piece about a young black lawyer played by Michael B. Jordan. This is based on a true story, true people, who goes to, I believe it's Alabama, to defend death row inmates.
Mhm.
He works with Brie Larson, who kind of already has a infrastructure set up, but he kind of heads the efforts to get these death row inmates expunged of their convictions. And it focuses mostly on him working with a character played by Jamie Foxx
Mm-hmm.
as he investigates both the evidence or lack thereof that put Jamie Foxx's character on death row, as well as examines the systemic racism that is happening within the judicial system in this. I think it's Montgomery County, in Alabama, that
Mhm.
that's putting black men on death row for crimes they did not commit. And this is a movie where if it was made even 5 years ago, Brie Larson would have been the main character. It would have been about her efforts to help these men,
Mhm.
with the lawyer played by Michael B. Jordan as the secondary character. But I'm really glad that this movie is not that, and that it is about how this black lawyer is recognizing racism
Mhm.
and is going to help these people. And yes, he is working with, white people to help him, but they are helping him on the cause. It's not the other way around. So it could have been a white savior movie if
Right.
told by different people, but it's not.
Yeah, it does a good job of like being like everybody is contributing to this issue.
Right.
The white people aren't solving it.
Exactly. Yes. Like
which seems to be how things used to be written often.
well, even like The Help, which was another Brie Larson. Was that Brie Larson or was that the
That was
no,
not
that
Brie
was,
Larson, but it was
what's her name? I can't think of her. Easy A. What's her name? Very famous actress, Emma Stone.
Emma Stone. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't think of it. You thought of it, so thank yourself.
Well, I had to talk it out with you.
All right. Fair enough.
What do you think about Just Mercy?
I like Just Mercy a lot. I remember when I saw it, it was like it was pandemic time, and
Right, it was on streaming or something. And
well, no, when what's the name of the guy who got murdered by the cops?
George Floyd.
When
When
George Floyd passed away, Warner Brothers put it on YouTube for free for like
passed
2
away.
weeks.
He was murdered.
Murdered.
It's like,
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
When George Floyd was murdered, Warner Brothers put it on YouTube for free for like 2 weeks. And I
Okay.
thought that was, for a major corporation, that was a cool
Right.
thing to do. You know what I mean? To just be like, hey, we had this movie that came out right before the pandemic that nobody paid any attention to.
No one saw. Yeah.
We could just put it on our streamer, but let's just let anybody watch it for free on the platform that everybody's on anyway, YouTube type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I watched it. I watched it for free on YouTube, and I enjoy it too. I think it's, as far as like legal dramas, forget all the social justice stuff around it, but just legal dramas, I think it's good. Has a great cast of actors. I think maybe the one that threw me off a little bit is like Jamie Foxx, because not often I see him in like a super serious role where he's not like action guy or comedy guy or something like that. And in this, he's just playing, it's like back to Ray, where he's just playing like a normal. You're not playing a normal person, but he's just playing a guy type of thing and not trying to be funny or an action star. And so it took me a little bit to get used to that, but he's not in most of the movies, so it was fine. Anyway, if you like legal dramas, you should definitely check this out. And if you like any of those actors, I think it would be a decently high ranking movie for any of them.
For sure.
Imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely in I have a top 5 and a bottom 5. For sure. Like
you're in like what you consider good to great movies.
Good to great movies. Yeah. Okay. I have a top 5, I have a middle 3, and I have a bottom 2. So we're out of the middle 3, we're out of the bottom 2. We are now in the good movies.
Yeah, I would say Just Mercy is a good movie to me. Starting from 4 and up, I'm getting in the great movies for sure.
I'm pretty sure our 1 through 4 are the same 4 movies. I'm curious to see if we have them in the same order. I think there's a strong chance we have them in the same order.
Okay, we'll see.
So let's see how many bingos we get. All right, so you're ready for the bingo butts, I can tell. My number 4 is Creed.
That's a bingo.
There we go. Okay. And we've discussed that one a lot.
Right. We don't have to talk about it more.
It's helpful that even though you've seen more movies of his, you've seen like 13 or 14 Michael B. Jordan movies to my 10. So it's not like there's a huge catalog for us to be talking about. And
I think I've seen 12. I think I've seen like 2 more than you.
Okay. And there's a pretty strong consensus on what his good movies are versus his not as good movies. So
sure.
Okay. My number 3 is Chronicle.
That's a
bingo. Okay. Nice.
Okay, so Chronicle.
Yep.
Let's talk about that for a second,
go.
and then we'll move on.
Oh yeah, no, we got to talk about it. Yeah.
Chronicle's great. I mean, first of all, it's a found footage movie. I love found footage movies, and it's the rare non-horror film found footage movie that is really well made. Like, I don't know, when I saw it, I was like, why don't they make more superhero movies like this? Because it totally worked for me. Like the final scene I thought was super inventive. How they have like, he takes control of cell phones and the cell phones are like filming him. So you have this escalation from like them just filming themselves to you can have like this big, huge superhero battle at the end and still keep the format. You can still keep the rules of the world basically and keep it in found footage by cutting to all these cell phones. I loved that. And I also just love like all the performances. It feels, I mean, I like found footage movies because they feel more real than most movies. That's part of the draw. And to see a superhero movie where everybody gets their powers in the movie and they test their powers, some of them, the test goes well and some of them they don't, and how real people would react to getting powers. Like the progression of the bad guy in this film, I think is a better progression than 90% of big budget, hugely successful superhero movies. And part of that's a presentation. Part of it is the cast just being, I didn't know any of them when I saw this. I just think it's super unique. Both in the superhero genre and in the found footage genre. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so for people who don't know this movie, it's about 3 high school friends, Dane DeHaan, Alex Russell, and Michael B. Jordan, who discover a mystery rock, which gives them superpowers. It essentially turns them into supermen. Like you have 3 supermen.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the movie, Dane DeHaan he's kind of the quiet kid. He is into like filming life. He wants to make a documentary about his life. So he's filming this entire, he's the point of view camera.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, he's kind of filming he and his friends as they explore their powers. But then this movie goes on. It's also about like, well, what happens when moody, outcast teenagers become supermen?
Right.
And
would they immediately be role models or, use their powers for good? Probably not. They'd be mischievous with it.
Right. Or they would be like moody, disenfranchised teenagers who would now have superpowers to do anything they want. And yeah. So it definitely goes dark. That's for sure. But I mean, it's great performances from all 3 of those, especially Michael B. Jordan and Dane DeHaan. They have a friendship that is complicated throughout the movie. And yeah, it's found footage, but because it's okay, because the movie is okay with not only being the single point of view, right? Like, because they have security cameras at the end and cell phones and people are filming it, you feel like you're watching found footage, but not just through the same point of view for the entire 90 minutes or whatever it runs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was late to this movie. I saw it only a couple years ago, but really liked it.
Yeah.
And I want to say the show, you and Zach were champions of this movie. One reason why I saw it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Get that finger ready because my number 2 is Black Panther. Oh no.
Oh, poor little Carl. What the?
Wait, was that poor Carl?
Yeah.
Was that from the like?
Poor little Carl.
What is that
the
from?
Puppy dog eyes.
You don't know what that's from?
No.
It's from The State sketch on MTV.
Oh, you've made. I never watched The State, but you've maybe played that one before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where this one comes from.
Carl?
That's from the same sketch.
I thought that I thought there was like a YouTube video from the early YouTube days of llamas talking. One of them was called Carl.
No.
Oh, great. Now I told you about it.
I don't know where you got that from, but it's not from that. For
All right.
sure.
I will find the llama YouTube Carl video and send it to you, and then you could have more fun sound clips.
Sure. Well, both those clips are like from one of my favorite The State sketches. I will send you that sketch. It's pretty great.
I just got to say, I sent you a certain clip about a certain third host of this podcast.
Oh, I have it. I just haven't loaded it on the machine.
Oh, okay. Because I feel like I get a lot of the brunt of the sound clips, which I maybe deserve. I'm okay with that, but
sure. No, I mean you're fine. I probably have 10 clips sitting on my laptop that need to move to the board.
Okay.
But honestly, there's like 8 banks with like 4 clips on each one. I think I need to reorganize it because I forget. There's some that are underplayed just because it's too hard to get from like the first frame to like the 8th. So I need to put things that get played more often together, like on the same page. Anyway, that's besides the point. So we didn't bingo all the way down to number 1.
We were close.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed we bingoed as much as we did, and we definitely share a top 5. Or we share a top 7, didn't we?
We shared a top 7, yeah.
Top 7, so pretty impressive. Yep. Okay.
And my 8, 9, and 10 you never saw.
Yeah, right. And my 8, 9, and you saw Wakanda Forever.
Right.
So okay, pretty good. All right, so Black Panther. I mean, a lot has been said about this movie, so I really want to talk about Michael B. Jordan because that's what this list is about, and he is a great bad guy as Killmonger. Like he is a great bad guy because you totally believe his motivations, right? You don't feel like he just is evil for the sake of evil, or he is bad because he wants to steal something. Like he feels like what he deserved, his birthright, what he deserved to have was destined to have. Thank you, was taken from him, and he was going to take it back. And he's also strong enough and powerful enough and smart enough to take it back. So in his mind, he's like, I should be king. I am the king. Here's all the reasons I'm king. Tell me why I'm not king.
Yeah.
Right. And it's also being played by Michael B. Jordan, who's a great actor, and Chadwick Boseman, who is a great actor. Seeing those two go together, both in their emotional scenes and their fight scenes,
Mhm.
it really makes me sad that we're not going to see more Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan on screen together, because they were great in Black Panther together.
Definitely. I mean, obviously my number one Michael B. Jordan was Black Panther. And I totally agree. Like I think Black Panther, certainly for movies where the villain is introduced and then done with by the end of the movie. You know what I mean? Like single film villains in the MCU, he is by far the best.
Right.
In that movie. The Killmonger character, as played by Michael B. Jordan, is just so personally tied to the main character of the film, and the performance, the writing, everything fired on all cylinders in that movie. And I don't care if we would have gotten anything Black Panther after that. It was a fully well told, complete story within one film, and I loved it. Plus, like his physicality in that movie, like the makeup they put on him with like all the war,
all the scars on his
and stuff like that. Yeah, like all the scars. And when him and T'Challa fight in that film, like you felt like something was actually happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like emotionally good, visually good. Black Panther itself was like new in general to an audience.
Mm-hmm.
The environment they created in the movie. Just like everything surrounding it, on top of Michael B. Jordan being good as the villain, just makes that movie more than like the other films in the genre, I would say.
Yeah, no, I definitely
more than most
pushes Black Panther ahead of the pack for a lot of those from your average MCU movie.
Yeah. As like single character titled movies.
Yeah.
Meaning like Iron Man's, Captain America's, Spider-Man's. I don't know. It might be close to number one. You know what I mean? Like maybe Iron Man 1, maybe the Spider-Man movie, the multiverse movie would be up there, but it's like
Winter
top
Soldier's
5
up
at
there.
least. Yeah, but even Winter Soldier, like you've got other characters in there. I know
Winter Soldier and Black Widow and all those are in there too. Yeah.
Right. Whereas with this one, it's literally just him. So anyway, my number 2 though, which sounds like it's your number 1.
It is my number 1. Yep.
Is Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale
right?
Station. Yes.
All right. Perfect. This is a movie I like a lot. I mean, it could have very easily been my number 1. Came out in 2013. It's the first time I ever saw Michael B. Jordan in anything. It's based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
And the story, it's been a while since I've seen this.
It's so Oscar Grant was shot by the San Francisco BART police, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, I think it stands for, on a subway platform while he was handcuffed, and people filmed it. And I want to say this was one of the first like filmings of a police on black killing that went viral. I don't know if viral's not the right word. That was broadcast, because this happened when cell phones were well known enough, or sorry, when
in the cell phone,
enough people had cell phone in the cell phone
era,
when
right.
the Facebook era, and cell phones could take quality videos too at the same time.
Right.
So
the internet distribution of police shootings.
Yeah.
It was at the beginning of that unfortunate continuing trend.
Right. Yes. It's still, well, the trend has been going on for a long time.
That's what I mean. Like, but the trend of like it actually
filming it and
getting on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, even if they had heard these things were happening, it wasn't quite as in their face as it is these days, for better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Michael B. Jordan is great in it. I mean, he plays the actual guy, right? That got shot.
Yeah, he plays Oscar Grant. This is in this movie, it's sort of like the 24 hours leading up to his murder.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of the people he interacts with. Like this movie why I gave this my number one
Mhm.
is because this movie paints a complete picture of who this person was. It humanizes this person
Mhm.
within 2 hours.
Mhm.
And you know where it's heading, and it's gut-wrenching that it's going there. But it also, the movie is not afraid to say, like, Oscar Grant was not a perfect person, or
Mhm.
at least how he's portraying the movie. Like he had his challenges. He was not, he was not perfect, but that doesn't mean that he deserved what happens to him. And I like the fact that
Right.
this movie, a lot of times, someone will get killed and be like, oh, but they were so great at this and that. And it's like, well, that's doesn't matter if person's good or not. People don't deserve to be murdered in general. So
Right.
I like that this movie presented an imperfect person,
Mhm.
but still said that doesn't mean he deserves what happens to him. And I think Michael
Yeah.
B. Jordan and then Ryan Coogler directed this too. We didn't mention Ryan Coogler also directed Black Panther, our previous one.
Right. He directed Creed, Black Panther, and Fruitvale Station, which are
Yep.
all movies that were in our top 4.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think I was just so emotionally hit by this movie, even though I knew where I was going. And the fact that it focuses not just on him, but then also like his family and the ramifications of, when you have a murder like this, how does it affect the community and the people who love this person too.
Yep. It's pretty much all the reasons why I like it is that it doesn't pull any punches by showing that that the guy who was murdered by the police was not a perfect person, but also it's possible for it's not a tragedy when police kill. What am I trying to say? The common defense. The common defense is
right.
This person was up to no good, and if you just don't do anything that's up to no good, then you never have to worry about it.
If you just comply, you won't be killed. Right.
Right.
That's always, if they just complied, they'd still be alive today. Is the defense you always hear
Right.
from the other side.
And I think what this movie shows is like, even though he wasn't a perfect person and maybe would have had moments where the police, I'm not saying they would have been justified, but could have tried to justify it in that way. It wasn't in this moment.
Right.
In this very moment, he was doing everything that was asked of him, and yet it still happened.
He was handcuffed, seated on a subway bench. Right.
Yeah. It was absolutely insane. And then I like that they give you that context, and they also give you the context of like everybody that depends on him and everybody who expected him to be there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like people
yep.
who had dreams of the rest of their life with him, stuff like that, that it didn't only end his life. It essentially ended what they expected their lives to be too, as well. And so, I liked all of that. I don't think it let the police off, but it also just didn't address them. You know what I mean? It was like the police that were there didn't hate the guy. They're just idiots. You know what I mean? They're just
right. Yeah.
They made a mistake.
Idiots with guns.
They weren't racist. They just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, the movie doesn't really go into them whatsoever.
That's what I mean. Like, there's nobody's trying to make the argument that they killed him because he was black.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even saying the movie's good for that. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't try to enter that conversation because that conversation doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You don't shoot people if you don't have to. You definitely don't shoot them when they're handcuffed. Doesn't matter what color they are. It's insanity that actually happened. I mean, they could literally be running away from you. If they're handcuffed behind their back, don't shoot them. You will catch up to them at some point. You know what I mean?
Even running away, why are you going to shoot someone in the back for running away from you? Like,
that's what I mean. Like, if somebody's handcuffed, there should be zero reason to shoot them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to trip, or you know what I mean? You will catch up with them. They're not going to hurt anybody. I mean, maybe if they're like running in front of oncoming traffic, maybe. I don't know. I don't know when.
I don't know why. I not a police officer, not trained in this whatsoever, but in my mind, the need anyway. Yeah.
Anyway,
what I like about this movie though is it doesn't focus a ton on the actual shooting. Like it's presented, it's depicted on screen. I think it actually is depicted on screen via recreated cell phone footage. So it's kind of like what people were seeing on Facebook at the time. But then, really immediately moves into how does this affect the community and the family that you were talking about. So it does not dwell on the actual murder because we know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, like in the movie, I'm just reading the Wikipedia page because it's been a while. It shows that he's like recently been unfaithful to his girlfriend.
Right.
Like at one point he needs some money, and so he considers maybe selling pot.
Yeah,
but he doesn't actually do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, again, it does a good job of like reminding you that this was a person
with flaws,
not an evil person, a normal person who was struggling in life and making decisions, or was at a moment where he could have gone one way or another. But ultimately, none of that matters. It does a good job of like giving color to a victim, I would say, in a realistic, as best as I can tell from my seat, a realistic way of portraying him. So, yeah, it's crazy. Supposedly the both officers were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. He says the guy who pulled the trigger claimed that he thought he was pulling out his taser.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, and which is I mean, again, it's very possible that's what we thought he was doing, but
it still seems like tasering somebody in cuffs is not appropriate.
Exactly. Yeah. And my understanding is the taser's on one side of the hip, the gun's on the other side of the hip. So,
yeah. Bottom line, and I think Kyle would agree with me. If you haven't seen Fruitvale Station, and you like dramas, you should definitely check it out. It's totally worth it. Even though it's a hard topic, it's a watchable version of that topic. I would say it's not. It doesn't. The vast majority of it is not the really depressing things. The depressing stuff comes right at the end.
But it's really the kind of the lead up to and painting a full picture of who this guy was.
It's also 85 minutes, so you can get in, get out. It's not going to ruin your whole night.
Well, it might ruin your night, but
I don't know. You could watch some America's Funniest Home Videos afterwards or something. Completely forget.
Yeah, watch some bloopers afterwards. You'll be fine.
Right.
But yeah.
All right.
Highly recommend. I mean, I think if you haven't seen any movie that has been a Ryan Coogler / Michael B. Jordan collaboration, check them out because they're great together.
Agreed. All right. That was our top 10 Michael B. Jordan movies. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If we got it completely wrong, or there's a Michael B. Jordan movie we didn't mention that you think we should see, although I think between the two of us, we've seen all of them, I would imagine.
Well, there's Kin. Oh, between the two of us, yes.
I've seen Kin. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple you didn't mention.
So I actually like Kin. Kin, if you ever see it, will frustrate you because at the end of it, it really starts to get going. And then they're like, can't wait for number 2. And you're like, but there will never be a number 2.
Yeah, why just do the first movie?
Right. And so that movie frustrated me because I really liked it. And then it bombed. And I knew that there would never be a number 2. Michael B. Jordan is not a big part of the movie.
Okay.
Which is why it didn't make my list. But I do like that movie and legitimately wish that it had been a big enough hit that they would even consider continuing it. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Anyway, yeah, let us know. Point is, let us know if you think we got it all wrong. heyguys@cinereelists.com. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube, support us on Patreon, or leave us an Apple Podcast review, any of those kinds of things we appreciate. You could also follow us on social media on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
Next week, we will be reviewing and discussing the movie with just heinous product placement in it. Beau is Afraid.
It really is the Transformers of this decade.
It really is. This is the new movie directed by Ari Aster, director of Midsommar and the other one. Hereditary, right. And so I've already seen it and can't wait to talk about it. It's definitely a movie that can be talked about, I would say.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm looking forward to talk about it with you, and Zach should be back next week also.
Yeah, I think we might have a guest too. Have you heard about this?
I mean, I just threw the Discord.
Right. I haven't heard any details, but we may or may not have a guest.
We may, if we can make it work, I think it'd be a great guest.
Right.
The scheduling, we'll see. We'll see if we can make it work.
Sure.
Yeah.
So look forward to that.
It's Ari Aster, guys. Spoiler.
Right. We're gonna get Ari Aster.
If we can feed him into our schedule, we're pretty busy guys. So
he's literally not talking about this movie on purpose, but we're gonna get him for a full 2-hour discussion on the movie.
So
like, have you seen the marketing interviews he's been doing where people ask him questions? He won't talk about Beau is Afraid. Like, he won't.
Is he embarrassed by it, or is it
no?
He just wants people to go see it?
No, he does not want to give meaning to any of it. He wants the audience to derive their own meaning from things.
How Kubrickian of him.
Right. And so, yeah. I mean, he did that kind of mildly with the other movies, but he's really leaning into it with this.
Okay.
Also, like, we'll get into it, but this like, if you thought he maybe had like family issues in those other movies, this movie makes him look like he has major mommy issues.
I already knew he had a family. I kind of figured from his previous 2 movies, he's got some issues he's working out here. So
right. So I've been watching like media stuff, and he's always prefacing that he has a good relationship with his mother, and that's not what it's about.
Okay.
Or maybe not necessarily that it's not what it's about, but that it's not self. What do you call it? It's not
self. Autobiographical,
right? It's not I mean, it wouldn't have been anyway, but it's not about his relationship with his
know
mother
what you mean.
at all. Yeah. He's like, this is just what I imagine in this situation. It's not my relationship with my mother. So I wonder if there's a piece of that too, as to why he doesn't want to discuss it, because he doesn't want to, like, I don't know. Point is, we'll be talking about it next week. We'll see you guys there. Until then, keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.